Okay, hi everyone. Thank you so much for the introduction. First of all, of course, I would like to introduce all of our participants today. We have Irene Nagudi. She's an educator from Uganda and founder of the Kitchen Gardens Initiative. And she mostly engages with raising awareness for sustainable practices, clean water, and climate change. And she also co-founded two organizations and is an environmental scientist. So thank you so much for being here. I don't see her. Ah, yeah, there you are. Yeah, Irene, thank you so much. Okay, next we have Zulaika Namwanje. She's also from Uganda and started an initiative called the Clean Earth Uganda, and she can tell us more about that later. She also joined a fellow activist, Nyombi Morris, who is an advocate for Fridays for Future Uganda, and mostly educates about climate change and what actions can be taken. And he's a founder of Earth Volunteers 2020. So Zulaika and Nyombi, thank you so much for being here today. And last but not least, we have Roseline. She's the founder of Fridays for Future Sierra Leone and organizes many climate strikes and sheds light on the worsening deforestation in Sierra Leone. And she brought us one of her favorite quotes today, which is probably a nice start. The world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything. So Roseline, thank you too for being here. And I'm really looking forward to the panel. Maybe to start off, the slogan of the public climate school in Germany this year is "Change begins with education." In many instances, it is emphasized that in order to tackle the climate crisis, we have to educate people. So maybe in your opinion, why do you think climate education is so important and how is it linked to climate activism? Maybe if you could answer that in a short sentence. Irene, why don't you start?
Okay, thank you so much. So I'll dive in straight away. I think climate education, it awakens us to act.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm just trying, maybe I can, yeah. Okay, perfect. Who wants to add on that?
Hello, everyone. I'm Roseline Isata Mansaray from Sierra Leone. Nice meeting you all here, fellow activists. Like Irene said, climate education promotes climate action.
Nyombi, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you so much for a wonderful introduction. As the last speaker said, that climate education fuels actions, but also apart from actions, it helps us to be ready, like to prepare ourselves on what might come. Because today we are talking about 2030 and 2050. If I may ask you what might happen, you are not sure and you are not ready. So through educating young people about what is happening today and what is science telling us, this can help us strengthen and also prepare on whatever might happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, very great introduction. Zulaika, do you want to add something on that?
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity. I take this opportunity to thank my fellow activists for what they have presented. And according to me, our climate education is really important because it helps us equip students with knowledge, skills, and values that will help them to go against climate change and its effects. And if you give me an opportunity, I would like to share something with you on my screen briefly. Is it okay?
Ah, yeah, ich bin muted. Thank you. Yeah, sure. Go ahead, please. Share your screen and show us your project. Zulaika, I think you're muted right now.
Yeah, so I'm showing you the importance of climate literacy. Briefly, it helps people to understand and address impacts of climate crisis, and it unleashes the knowledge of students with skills needed to act against climate. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Zulaika. I think that was a very nice summary of what climate education actually means. And maybe the others could tell us a bit about your inspiration, why you started to get active in climate education, and maybe also what role did it play in your own education and your own experiences, how they dive into the picture. And I know, for example, that Roseline, you gave an interview with the Yazır Gazette where you stated that the climate crisis is a daily reality in your country. And maybe you could tell us what influence that had on your activism.
Hello, good afternoon once again. Like Zulaika said, I will first start from addressing or adding some facts on what she had just said about the climate education. She mentioned, climate education actually helps students, young people to address and understand the impact of climate change, and also empowering them with the right knowledge, skill, and attitude needed to act as an agent of change. And in that regard, the climate is a reality in my country. You see, Sierra Leone is located on the west coast of Africa with a total area of 71,740 kilometers. And the country is ranked as one of the poorest countries in the world that face multiple risks from climate change that threaten key economic sectors, and also increase the potential for wider environmental degradation. And the civil war in 2002, the civil war in Sierra Leone cost us a lot of our forest cover. And however, deforestation still continue uncontrollable in Sierra Leone. And after the end of the civil war, the socio-economic progress the country made, that was also undermined by the Ebola outbreak. And when we talk about climate education, the importance of climate education, I did have the knowledge about climate because I wasn't taught in school from my primary school about what climate change is and what are the effects and what are the consequences of this disaster. I wasn't taught that in school and I had no idea about it. And I got my inspiration from Greta Thunberg. I can say this loud, kudos to Greta for the inspiration and the motivation she gave me to become an activist, and how to also implement the idea to school-going children to get the knowledge about what climate change is and what are the consequences and what role they will play to become an ambassador for their environment. So with the inspiration I got from Greta Thunberg, and putting that inspiration into the situation of my country and how we have been affected by climate change, I had a story to tell. Of course, I have tasted the bitterness of climate change. I used to stay in a community called Krube. This community is located near the sea, And this is the same sea where the entire community dump their garbages. It's really heartrending and so sorrowful when it rains every year, because we have two seasons. We have dry season and we have rainy season. So when it rains every year, this community will overflowed with water because of lack of planning and a lack of good drainage facility. This community will overflow with water. And can you imagine, the community is located by the sea, and when this happened, a lot of people got injured, both young and old people carried away by water. Some die, and some also loses their some loses their finances, property, life. Is really heartrending. And when I learned about this climate change and I featured this story that had happened to me, then I thought it is important to create awareness about the climate crisis in my country. And it is important to demand action from our leaders to take concrete or declare a climate emergency in my country, because we are exposed to this disaster. It is happening in front of our eyes every day, but still people are just doing deforestation, and people are just doing environmental degradation and sand mining and stone mining that's exposing the environment or the community to soil erosion. So this is really heartrending for me. So that's why I decided to start advocating for climate justice and climate action in my country. And by standing on the roadside with my placard, written Dear School Strike for Climate Action, Youth Strike for Climate Action, to call upon policy leaders to take a decision when it comes to climate justice, when it comes to climate action, because we are in crisis. And the most painful thing is, the thing is not taught in school. We don't have idea about it. So I take the education to be a strong memento, to be part of my activism, and by going to schools to educate the school-going children about what climate change is and what are the importance of trees, and what messages they should take home to educate their parents about the importance of trees, why it is important for us to have trees in our community, why it is important for us to take care of our drainages, not to dump rubbish in the drainages, because when we dump rubbish in the drainages, then it rains, and when the water overflow, it will affect communities. So I thought it's very important for them to know, and when they know about this fact, they will be able to adapt, or they will be able to take action on how to be ambassadors of their environment, and how they can disseminate the information to the parent. Because the saying goes that when a child takes home a message from school to the parent will more listen to them, and they will really adhere to what the child is saying, and they will try to practice that. So I could say, thank you.
Thank you so much, Roseline. I think it's really inspiring how passionate you get talking about the subject, but also, of course, it's really depressing and hard to hear the consequences of the climate crisis in your country right now. I would like to ask the others if you have similar experiences that brought you to being a climate activist. Maybe start telling us a little bit more about your own projects that you started. For example, Nyombi, I know that you started the project Earth Volunteers, and maybe you'd like to tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Roseline, for that wonderful input. First of all, I may be asking what made me to form that organization known as Earth Volunteer. To make it clear, Earth Volunteer is a non-profit organization that was established in 2020 to unite young people who are passionate about climate change, climate action, climate conservation, and tree planting. We have been on front line ever since I discovered that I was a victim to climate change in 2020. I started the tree planting because that was the first action which I could do. But through the process, I received a lot of demand because many people were like, Maurice, tree planting is also an action, right? But again, can't you do something? And I was like, no, that's the only thing I can offer, because the demand is high, but also the funds we get are too little, because we depend mostly on fundraising, imagine. So it wasn't so easy, but I realized that the more I kept on doing this, I attracted many young people who wanted to join me. Now, the only way to unite them was to form a group. At first it was a group, I call it an organization, but it's not registered even. But yeah, I had to find a way of uniting them, bringing them together. So we started moving school by school. Before moving to school, we first visited forests, and we realized that actually this started in 2020, when I first discovered that my government was behind the sale of one of the forests known as Bugoma Forest. This forest is having over 34,000 species, including humans who are already protecting it. Okay, who used to do that? Who used to stay there? Who used to benefit from it? Because today, as I'm talking now, it was sold. It was sold to a sugarcane company known as Hoima Sugar to plant sugarcane, which I'm not sure that we can survive without carbon sinks, because it was one of the few forests that used to help us get rainfall formation and also cut some carbon footprints, because I know it cannot do enough, but it was helping us. When I realized that, I came out and I spoke, and I started tweeting, posting about it, which at a certain point, it made my government feel bad to an extent that I was banned on Twitter for 1.5 months. So this again brought some other ideas in me, and I was like, okay, because they cannot fight you if you are not doing right. The only way to fight you is they always fight you when you are doing something that hits them so hard. So I never kept quiet. I mobilized my people, those who are following me by then, to come together and find a way of protecting this forest. That's when I started planting trees. And the first support I got was from my followers on all social media platforms, because they donated, and I went to the first events. In these events, we planted some trees. There were not many because it consumed us a lot, but through that process, we kept on doing it, and that's how we became to be known. And like, yeah, volunteer, these are people, they are planning. Today, we are more than 150. We are actually, our people are working, like they are doing it voluntarily, they are not paid, but they are passionate. We have been on front line, as I said. We are setting up strikes. Whenever there is a global strike, we make sure we participate, because our mission is to make sure that we are living by example, not just prejudice, because for us, we are not good in that. We just want to show actions, and these actions are the ones that can make a difference. So when I started my activism, a lot of people felt like this was for only like female, like gender. It was genderized to an extent that I used to feel bad to be standing in front of my street or anywhere with a cardboard talking about climate change, because men were asking, Maurice, you need to find a job, you need to find where to like something to do other than talking about climate change. What is climate change? Are you a victim? If you're a victim, can you tell us your story? So it was so hard to me, had a lot of demand. But as you know, climate change is something that has been happening, but the knowledge about it is still lacking, and mostly in countries like mine, and also in my very continent, Africa. In Uganda today, I can't tell you, I wasn't taught about climate change. I've been learning this through activists all over the world, Louisa, Greta, Vanessa. There are many, I can't give all the names, but these are the people who have taught me activism, including UN and UNESCO websites and Oxfam. So through this, that's how I managed to come out and start telling what is supposed to be done. And when you see us pushing for climate education, we are not just pushing it because we are like, we need to start about it. No, we want to prepare ourselves. That is it. We are the next leaders. If we are the next leaders now, that leadership has to start, like we have to start creating it today. And through empowering young people with knowledge about what is happening, this will make us go through this catastrophe when we are ready, because at the same time, we can be employed in this same thing. But it's just that we are not already, like, we are still blindfolded, and many people tell us that there's no money in activism, there is no jobs in activism, but surely there are many people who are employed in renewables. There are many people who are employed in farm, like in my country, 70% of people, they can depend on farming. So farming has helped us to grow up. Even up to now, we are still feeding from the farmers' food. So you can't tell me I can't be employed in activism when I make it, like when I push it to be in the right path. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. I think your activism and your work is very inspiring, and also opening up the opportunities you really have with being an activist. And you already opened up this bridge from being a climate activist and education, and maybe to add on that, you could tell us a bit more about the term climate literacy. I think also Zulaika is engaged in that. Yeah, if you want to explain what that means and how that is important.
Yeah, this actually, we realized that we couldn't just be moving with trees without books, because many teachers were asking us, okay, you give us trees, you always donate to us, but what next? Because some of us are not even aware of what is happening. Even teachers are not aware of climate change. So we decided to find a way of like teaching them to be part of the solution, because we couldn't be telling them plant a tree. That is not enough. That is not enough completely. I don't support it. So when I discovered that, I had to sit down last year in November, and I started looking through my connections, who can help me. I wanted to even to write my own book about climate change and how young people can be educated through my book. And I realized it was so costly, it was consuming, and I had a lot of workload. So what I did was to reach out to different people who have been in touch with me already. That's where I got one of the guy in UNICEF. And it was like, no worries, in 2017, there is a book that was written about climate change for young people. Maybe we can go through it with you and see if it can help you. So when we went through it, we discovered there are a lot of information that was missing, because it was written in 2017, and a lot has changed. And also what is happening in my country might not be happening in those countries, because one of the countries that was linked in that book was mostly Zambia. So we had to go back and sit and add in more information about what is happening in my country. So through in the month of November, December, and January, we are going through the book and adding in more information for young people, because I realized that in 2022, I wanted to educate young people about climate change. I have to make sure I empower them so that they can take control even when I'm not there. And also, I realized that in schools, we have a lot of students that come from different districts, and these are the districts that are mostly affected. So if I teach someone who is from northern Uganda, who will take that information back, and their people will be benefiting. So that's why I targeted schools mostly. So when we sat, they gave me a copyright to be a distributor to this book, and they allowed me to distribute. So I give it out for free, and whoever has reached out to me has got a copy. That's what we do. Thank you.
Wow, that's really great. Thank you so much for the explanation. Before we dive more into education in general, maybe Irene, you could tell us something about your initiative, Piccini Gardens, because I'm really interested in that. And then also explain a little how you educate children about climate.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you, Maurice. It's really moving. It's amazing. For Piccini Gardens, this is a non-profit in Uganda still. And we do educate children about climate change, but through organic gardening. We didn't want to just talk about climate change in classrooms, but we felt like if we go down to the soils, then we learn how to connect food to climate change. Children will be really attached to it, and it has really worked out. because we started with homes, the parents, especially the mothers and their children, where we could set up the urban gardens for them. So you teach them how to make fertilizers. Then the lesson would be, we're trying to avoid the chemicals that we do purchase. The more we produce chemicals, we're not only destroying the soil, but we are releasing gases into the atmosphere. So you find that it was really simpler for us to educate to them about climate change, but using a practical skill. They learn that it's not only about food, but we're learning something behind food. And that's how we've been doing it. So apparently we are in 2 schools, and these schools, we're trying to now show them that, okay, if you need food, unfortunately, in 8 years from now, food might be hard to get. Like, we're going to have more of food insecurities because of climate change. And we try to solve the situation and the hard times for these children to understand it better. So I don't know if I need to talk about the inspiration as well. Yeah. So before, as you read my bio, I was a co-founder of a number of youth organizations, and these were basically students in universities. But when we used to reach there, you find that, yeah, if you're not doing an environmental science course or environmental related course, they didn't know anything about climate change. You bring a business person and they'll be like, okay, what are you guys talking about? And it was really challenging because you have to go back to the basics. So I realized this is not the way things should go. If at university, that's when you get the knowledge about climate change, I feel like we have a knowledge gap somewhere. And today, as I communicated earlier, I'm having a school outreach and I had to step out. But can you imagine, this is primary 4, children are between the ages of 10 to 12, but they've never heard about climate change. Yet Timosi Naulusala from Fiji, at the age of 12, he was talking at COP23 about climate change, calling the heads of state to act. So I feel like, particularly in Africa, we still have a challenge there. And it so happens that Uganda is among the top 10 countries that are vulnerable to climate change. That was 2019, the IPCC report. So you find that we still have that gap that I feel like, no, we have to do something about it. So I decided to do this through the initiative Kichini Gardeners. We don't just garden, but we feel like through organic gardening, we bring in these lessons about the soils, about the climate change, so that children feel attached. Then when I increase on the green spaces around my home, when I engage my parents, when I engage my grandmother, something is changing. And not only do we garden with them vegetables mainly, but we do give them fruit trees. And at times you would find that these children could tell you, I want that fruit tree to grow, that mango tree, so that I can have mangoes, give to my family. So you find that, okay, indirectly, you're causing them to act. And that's why we were like, let me use gardening to influence the climate action. And it is really working out for us. Yeah.
Thank you so much for telling us about this interesting initiative. I think it's so inspiring how you take a practical way to educate about climate activism and getting people to be active themselves. Maybe the others could also dive a little bit in specific challenges in educating children, because, as you said, climate change is such a complex topic and it's very difficult to talk about and educate about that. And maybe also which methods you use, like the practical gardening method is definitely one, but what else do you use to educate, like specifically?
Okay, so climate change, I would say it's among the hardest topics someone can really pass on to their children. And remember, they don't know this information. So we try to simplify the information for them. Now, let me say, when we talk about adaptation, so we have to look about scenarios. In adaptation, what can you do as a young person, like to adapt towards climate change? So if it means us to draw bottles for them to understand that instead of buying a single-use plastic bottle, how about you carry a reusable? So this would stick into the child's mind. But as you said, it's among the hardest topics. Definitely, we have to go back ourselves and read. And in reading, you find, okay, how can we best simplify this? So in doing so, me and the team, we came up with a very simple way of expressing about global warming. So for this, we use a plastic cup, put in hot water, then cover it with a polythene bag. You see the steam rising up, and we start asking ourselves questions. What is this? This is the steam. Okay. And what is this? It's produced from the cup, and the hot water, it's producing all this steam in the plastic bag. So what does it mean to us? We believe that when we talk about global warming, this is the planet Earth. And when you talk about planet Earth, it's hard for a child to understand this. So what do we have to do? We have to simplify it in an experiment they can easily understand. So we're like, when we produce a lot of greenhouse gases, that's the cup and on our planet. So the cup stands for the planet. So when we produce a lot of greenhouse gases, all these gases are going to go into the green, like they're going to compile into the atmosphere, the ozone layer as greenhouse gases. So when they're there and they cannot penetrate through, they'll come back into the cup. So the experiment of the cup helps us to explain the global warming effect of it. So you find that, okay, they start asking you questions here and there. How does it come about? So you go down there and you start explaining to them how the whole scenario comes about. But then the experiment, it simplifies everything for us. And furthermore, we've gone ahead to simplify simple manuals, though I didn't carry one with me here, I would have shown you, but I'll share at some time to come. So these manuals with pictures, so they see these pictures and they'll be like, okay, but these pictures do have quotes. Did you know that climate change is happening? What can you do about climate change as a child? So these are intriguing questions for children to ask and to start asking themselves questions. And we believe it's creating, inspiring creative thinking and critical thinking in their minds. And besides that, we also use, I love Timosi Naulusala and Greta Thunberg, then Leah Namogera from our country. So we use these icons. These are also young people, they are teenagers. And if they're doing something to address the heads of state, we believe that also these children can do it. So I will tell you shortly, when I first watched the video of Timosi, trust me, I was emotionally driven. And when I showed it to the children we're working with, they were like, okay, this boy can do this. I'm like, yes, and you can do it in your country, Uganda. So it means that we just have to inspire them, to show them that you're not alone, someone else is doing it. And it's also another way we're trying to do it. Also engage the parents and the teachers as well, because they are not informed about this. But when we put them part of the group, they tend to talk about this all the time. When they go to classes, when they meet the students, they can easily help us to transfer that information. So we have gardening, we have the videos from other activists, we have storytelling moments. We'll be like, okay, what happened? Have you ever seen flooding in your region? So you find that, yes, I watched this on TV. And we tell them, okay, if you watch this on TV, it can possibly happen in your home one time. And they start relating, okay, if it happens in my home, what should I do? Meaning that now we've started capturing them, but through things that they see and they are used to. So basically, that's how we do it.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I think it's also great to see what you've already achieved with these methods and how they work, like simplification. Maybe someone else wants to add on specific challenges in education and educating children or other methods you use? Zulaika or Roseline, if you have to add something on that. Otherwise, we could move on.
I can add something on the challenges that we face while doing climate education. In my country, most of the schools and the teachers are really not concerned with climate change. So if we climate activists come up and we really want to give out information concerning climate change, it's really hard. Sometimes we are not given that opportunity to talk to the children, because even climate change is really not part of the curriculum. So some schools really find it as time wasting, since students really have a lot to cover and that will be examinable. So they really find climate education not important, yet it is something important. And we see that a lot of things are happening in our country. Flooding, deforestation is really high. And recently, Bugoma forest was really on a high risk, whereby it was to be replaced with sugarcane plantation. But if we can really go into different schools and educate students about this, it would really bring a big change. But schools really don't find it interesting. Some schools don't find it interesting, and that's really hard for us. Thank you.
Okay, can I say something small?
Sure, of course, go ahead.
She triggered my mind. Actually, you find that the schools, but also the parents, being that majority of our parents, they're not educated. And those who are educated, definitely, they don't know this knowledge. When you bring it, they're like, hell no, you're not going to work with my children and all that stuff. So you find that the knowledge gap, even in the adults, it's still a problem. And I keep on asking myself, how can we now educate the adults so that climate education begins from homes, not actually just at schools, but if parents could be part of this, it would be amazing. So the knowledge gap, even among parents, it's still a problem. Yeah.
Hello, can I also add something there? Hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Irene, and thank you, so fellow speakers. And yeah, like my colleague had just said, climate education in school is really challenging. One point is because it is not included in the school curriculum, so it's become very challenging to go there and teach the kids about what climate change is. And then also the teachers are not into climate education, so they find it difficult. Of course, some schools do a little bit of science, like primary schools, they have that basic knowledge, but when you go there, practically the kids are lost. Now the teachers will be there. Don't you know that? Don't you know what is drought? Don't you know what is climate change? Don't you know what is temperature rise, temperature increase? These are in basic science, but they don't teach them. When you go there, you are trying to explain to them. So they will be there to to help you so that the kid can be able to answer you. But in the mere fact, it is not taught in school. And also because we don't have syllabus actually, since the thing is not taught in school, so there is no syllabus to follow in teaching this kid about the climate or about climate education. So it's also challenging. And another thing is, climate information are always expressed in the scientific terms, which are big jargons. So for you to break them into the level of the understanding of the kid is also challenging. So these are the difficulties. Like Irene said, also the education have to start from the home. And some parent does not agree with you when you go discussing climate education with your kids. They even see you as if you are explaining something very different. They don't understand it. So in order for them to support your idea, it's really challenging. So it is difficult somehow in teaching climate education with kids. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. This also already perfectly builds a bridge to my next blog, because I would like to dive into formal education. And Irene already touched upon that teachers and adults are sometimes a bit reluctant towards education about climate activism. And I was wondering, what people think? Why is it an important topic or not? Or what do you think are the reasons for the reluctance that you experience? Why people don't want to engage with education about climate activism? And probably tell us a little bit more about who is responsible or who should be responsible. Like, is it the teachers in schools, or is it activists, or should there be more collaboration? Probably. I don't know who wants to jump on that question. I think I know that Morris, you are engaged in, maybe you go ahead.
First of all, what took us to schools is not only to talk about climate change and why it is happening, but also we want to bring up new voices in the fight. So when you ask that who is responsible, we are all responsible, but who's the person? Like, who is which person should we connect direct, or which person should we demand to first take the lead? These are teachers. one of the speakers talked about how teachers react when we go to their schools. By the way, I'm among the few activists in this in Uganda, and whenever there is an activity in school that is supposed to be done, or whatever I'm planning, even if it is 2 months from now, I have to first write down something on paper, then I send in out to schools, to different schools, and alert them that okay, I request for sending request letters asking for me to be in their schools. You don't just go. But many times this year I have wrote more than 7, and 5 were turned down. So it is like teachers themselves are not interested in this, because we may be blaming the parents for not taking that responsibility. But what about the teachers that are earning money from these students whenever they attend classes? So I have realized that the ignorance is still more in teachers, which need to be reduced, and that has to start now. Because one, if you don't have, if teachers don't accept you to access the school, meaning you can't do your work, that is gone, totally gone. So the people to hold accountable when it comes to climate education first should be the government, because we cannot be blaming teachers again for stopping us from accessing their schools. It is their right, because some schools are private. But also, what about the government? What if you come out and make it a compulsory topic in all schools? Will teachers refuse to teach them, to share it with students? That's the first question. If the curriculum is not yet implemented, how are we going to make sure it is implemented? Because that's the reason why we are in schools. We want to show young people that climate change is happening, and this is the person you should hold accountable. So through that, we'll bring out a very strong voice. This voice is the one which is going to demand this government or any other government in any country to take the lead, or to approve our request of making it a compulsory subject like other subjects. We have subjects that are not even important in today's life, but they are still being taught in all schools, and I see them. Sometimes I'm like, why did I do this? Why did I study this? I spent all my 10 years, 7 years in school. Why did I study this? So sometimes we have to first shift the blame and take it back to the government, because this was brought to light a long time ago, but because they do not care, because for them, they have a chance to be in luxury cars, big good offices, they take tea and everything. They are not aware that this is happening to people who are in remote areas, who don't have even access to television, that they can see that flooding is happening somewhere. So for me, the responsibility is for all of us, but teachers shouldn't be blamed so much. We take it back to the government. Thank you.
May I please add something on what Maurice has said?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, actually, what I can say about teachers is that we really don't have to blame the teachers, because you can imagine if I'm a student and I'm studying to become a teacher and I've not gained any education about climate, of course, I won't be interested in teaching my students climate change. So there is really a high rate of ignorance, whereby if we can encourage our government to bring out measures that can provide that education to teachers, it will also help us to be able to access the students in schools. That's what I think.
Thank you so much. Yes, please, Irene, go ahead and add on that.
Okay, so the first question was more like, when we talk about climate change, why is it not moving for something of a sort? So you find that, let me say, when we talk about climate change, mainly we do come up with mitigations and adaptation strategies. You find that you do not have to cut down a tree. Then we have to stop on fossil fuels. Excessive tillage should not work for us. So if it's that way, you find that the people we're talking to, these are people who are poor. Because as we know, Africa, most of the countries are really like poor. We're still experiencing poverty at a high rate. So when you talk about not cutting down a tree, I'll sell charcoal or firewood, especially when it comes to rural communities, even in urban centers. Like we're next to the capital city, but still we're using firewood. Others are using charcoal. So you find that when we tell these people about this, someone will be like, okay, what's the alternative? And how much does it cost? So you find that we still have that problem. We're not having just one problem of climate change, but we're having a number of problems starting from poverty. And you find that so for people to step up into climate action, it's really a challenge. And definitely you'll find that the government will try to stop you because you're talking about us stopping using fossil fuels. Okay, we're going to stop, then what are we going to use? We cannot afford electric cars. When you talk about, because it's not Bugoma forest, they want to give out Mabira forest as well, and that's the biggest forest we have in the country. Though now it has been reduced, I don't know to how much, but you'll find that for them, we have to look, okay, it's development. And you find that most of the environmental activists and climate activists, you have to relate to development before we come up with like, guys, stop this. So you have to bring in the development aspect and making sure it's a short term, because if it's a long term, and as you can find that most of the climate strategies we come up with, these are long-term strategies, like the benefits are in the long-term process. So you find that definitely the government will stop you. And who's responsible? Definitely it's the government. But then the problem we do believe that Africa as itself, we're not the great contributors to greenhouse gases, which is the fact. But remember, we are the most vulnerable to climate change. We're already experiencing the effects of climate change. So if our leaders or heads of states do not understand this, it's still a challenge for us. We need to think ahead of us. Okay, we're not the greatest contributors to greenhouse gases, but then we are vulnerable to it, and our children are going to suffer the consequences if we do not stand up and say something about this. So you find that it's still making us lag behind, and the government, since it's all about development, we tend to be like, hell no, this won't work for Africa, this won't work for Uganda, so this won't work for Sierra Leone. So you find that we still have a number of challenges. But the consequences we're experiencing right now, when I realized that since 2010 up to 2022, Uganda has experienced 19 flood events. That is too much. You can imagine how much has been lost, especially in property, at times lives of people, the diseases that come along, when you look at food security. So you find that the problems are just piling, but simply because we need to sit with these people, we have to reason out. And they have to start thinking into the lives of the future generations, which is hard to find, but we have to think about the future generations. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Roseline, do you want to add something on that? Otherwise, I have another question for you. But if you want to add on that, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I can add something actually on that. And like the question who to blame or who is responsible for climate education. And like Irene said, I quote from her statement, like we all need to play part. That is the first thing, because one person cannot do it alone. And then we all have to really play active role in succeeding in our common goal. It is important. And but we have challenges, and like disseminating the information to people in the villages. Like Irene said, if we say, okay, stop deforestation, it is good. For me, I have faced that one because I do district education on deforestation. So when I went to one district, trying to sensitize the community people about the effect of deforestation and what they should do and what not to do. So I got a lot of questions from the village people asking me, okay, Roseline, if you said we should stop deforestation, what should we do next? How are we going to get firewood in cooking? Are you going to bring another opportunity? As you know, Africa is really, most African country are poor, so it's very challenging. They would throw this question at you directly. So what is your next plan if we stop doing deforestation? Some of us, we do a charcoal burning in order to take care of our family. So now, if you say we should stop charcoal burning, what are the next options? What plan do you have for us so that we can leave the charcoal burning? Mind you, Roseline, this is the job that we do to take care of our kids. This is the job that we do to send our kids to school. And this is the job to do to shelter them, feed them, everything. So if we have to stop this, what will be the next plan for us? So it's really challenging. And some will even go to the extent, okay, do you have money to give us if you want us to live doing these activities? And do you have money for us so that we can invest in the agricultural activity in order to stop deforestation? Okay, that's good. And we have foresters in here, people who are there to safeguard our forest. So I also went to 2-3 of them, inquiry from them. They told me, Rosie, we are foresters, yes, of course, but we have been paid little money at the end of the month. So if someone come to log in into the forest and give us some huge amount of money, of course we shall let them go in and log what they want. So poverty is the link of this problem in Africa. We face a lot of challenges, and then of course, who really to blame, or who is really to be responsible for this is the government. Because why the government? The government have power to bring jobs, green jobs, to bring innovative ideas in communities so that it can help the people. And so they have the power to really enforce the climate education in school, because knowledge is power. And if when we want to do this sensitization, we go down to community people, we explain to them in the local dialect, and we try to bring new idea on how they should stop this and how they should change to this other idea. I think that can work better. So government is to be blamed here, huge. And I heard about our Ministry of Environment here in Sierra Leone, went to one of the districts and they plant trees there. I think they didn't go there, they didn't go and sensitize the people. So when they plant the trees, the people, when they return, the people just remove all the trees they have planted. It was really challenging and sad. So I didn't know, maybe they didn't go there first to sensitize the people, or they just went ahead and plant trees. So when they left, the people just remove their trees. So government is to be blamed, government is to be responsible, because they have the greater they have the greater power to do everything that it is needed for the community people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you also for explaining how all those different issues, political and social, are connected. And we have a raised hand, so maybe you want to go ahead and add on what Roseline just said.
Yeah, I was just adding on why we should hold our governments or our leaders accountable. First, these leaders have been in power and they have been trained to lead. That's the first thing. If you are trained to lead, meaning you have to listen to your people. Whenever there is a COP conference, let's say COP26, these leaders are the first people to get the front seat. In any conferences I've seen, they have never missed sending in representatives. That's the first thing why they should be held accountable. Years and years, activists have been talking about climate education. No one bothers when they move out of that conference. No one bothers. And also they go ahead and borrow money from international monitoring funds. This money, they always borrow to come back and build back better, setting up resilient and building up structures. We always see my government has been borrowed billions of money, and today we are stuck in debts. And they are telling me they're not ready for transition. That is a lie. They just need pressure. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that explanation and extending on that. We're already coming towards the end. I have one question that I'm very interested in. To your mind or in your opinion, should climate education have its focus on individual behavior or more on the criticism of a broader system, capitalism, for example? Because I think, Roseline, you already mentioned the interconnections between climate change and, for example, the civil war or the Ebola health crisis. And to your opinion, if your education should be more about what individuals should do or also showing these connections, or if both maybe is important? If someone wants to jump on that question, I know it's very broad.
Yeah, when you talk about climate education, it's not all about who should learn about it. That's the first thing. All of us need it, because flooding may not find you here, but it will find you in UK. Last year, we saw everything changing all over. The world was under attack last year in August. Flooding everywhere, wildfire everywhere, heat waves. So you need information. It may not find you in your country, but you are going to be traveling. You like touring and everything. It will find you anywhere. So climate change education need to be broad for all of us first, so that we can understand it. Because even those capitalists you look at, they are also hiding somewhere in they always, for me, I always see them, they come to we activists in our organizations and ask on how we can collaborate. But because for us, we are not ready for that money, we always turn them down because they are aware of what is happening, but they are not ready to stop.
I'm afraid we can't hear you anymore. Maybe we...
reason why we should continue.
Okay, I think now you're back. Maybe you could repeat the last part of what you just said.
Yeah, I was still telling you that these organizations, those international organizations, those capitalists, those industrial lobbies, you see, they are also aware of climate change, but just that they are so much greedy on what they are getting, because they are like, I can't lose this money, I'm earning billions, why don't I pay some activists to stop talking about our companies? Because I remember there is a time I attacked Coca-Cola and they were not happy with me. So they reached out, they have agents and everyone, even Total today is doing some that work in our country in Western Uganda. But whenever you come out and talk about ECOP, you expose them, they look for the way of bribing you, compromising you so you can keep quiet. So it doesn't mean they're not aware, they're aware. And also, we just need to show them that, no, you know what, we are not ready for any that money, because in my group or MAPA, we have turned down a lot of them because they come looking for us to silence us. So educating them is important. We all need to know what is happening and what we can do to change. So education is broad, is for all of us, even leaders.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else want to jump on that question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Okay, so first, I really appreciate Maurice what he said, holding people accountable, but I will start with that. So I'm always wondering, why would you promise something and you do not want to fulfill? Like after COP, they always make promises, and why wouldn't you fulfill? Because we believe that you're a leader and you're representing a nation, so you have to fulfill. And when it comes to climate education, should it be just focused on individual behavior or climate activism? So you find that both, I'll go with both. First, we need to educate people individually so that their behavior towards the environment, because I believe leadership begins with self. So if you personally cannot conserve your environment, so it's hard to conserve your neighbor's environment. Why am I trying to drive at? When we come to individuals and we do understand that our behaviors are the ones destroying the nature or the environment we're in, we always have to understand and be like, okay, this is it. What can we do about it? And climate activism, just as Maurice has said, it awakens these leaders, the big companies that we do see at times when we go for individual, yes, we've trained these people, then can they help us? We go out for an activism so that these people know that we're seeing what is happening, but we do need them in order to change everything. But when we just stop on individual behavior change, it would be hard to reach out to these organizations. First and foremost, they're into profit. And for us, we're coming up with a topic that's not bringing profits. We're talking about the profits, but in the long term. And definitely they will be dead. I will be dead by then. But what are we trying to drive at? When we bring in the climate activism as well, we're awakening the people. People need to know what's really happening. And the moment we awaken them, like when you attack Coca-Cola company, when you attack Total, and to the moment that they want to pay you, like you be silent, that means you're doing something great. And we just have to keep on pushing. So I support both of them as one way we can achieve what we're doing. So more climate activists, we need them out on the streets. Though in our country, it tends to be hard, so we have to go on social media, because the moment we be like, okay, let's step on the streets, definitely they're going to beat us down. You guys, you're causing commotion in the city. What are you doing? Whereby you have to find that I have to go like maybe one person holding a placard, so climate change is real, stop fossil fuels, like I personally. But if we go in our group, definitely we're going to be beaten up because the heads of state, that's a threat to them. So we need to work together, but think of different things and also try to understand what works in Europe won't work in Uganda. So we need to know what best works for us. We go into it and see that we can achieve and work together. Just as Roseline said, climate change is not a one-man's army. Everyone needs to act. And with that, I believe we can achieve the Agenda 2030. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Irene. Also very inspiring. Yeah, if that's that, then I would want to give the audience the opportunity if there are any questions. If there are, you can just ask them now. You can also ask them in German and I'll translate. Okay, that doesn't seem to be. Yes, please go ahead.
Can they hear me? Can you hear me? It's up, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So you talked about how schools react and teachers react when you try to go there and teach the children about climate change. But how do the children, the students actually react when you tell them about this? So are they interested? Do they know anything about it? Or are they like overwhelmed with the information? What are the responses you're getting from children?
Could you understand that, or should I repeat the question?
Kindly repeat the question, please.
Okay, the question was basically what the reaction of the children is when you go there and tell them about the climate crisis and what they react, if they already are familiar with the topic, if they're interested in it, and what your experiences are with the kids' reactions.
Okay, can I go?
Please, yeah.
Okay, so some of the reactions I've got from children, especially, they're always positive reactions. First and foremost, this is something new to them, meaning that they are excited to learn, okay, how is it all about? And as I said earlier, we give them these icons. When they see other children are doing it, someone will be like, oh yeah, I can do it as well. So we try to trigger their inspiration, their inner being, that they can do it. So you find that when you empower them that, yes, you can do it, you give them the information in the simplest form that they do understand it, you find they are really excited and all the time they want to learn. Because most of the times we meet them once in a week, but when you come the following week, this child is so excited to see what do you have for them today. Meaning that they do understand, surprisingly enough, this is a generation which is too bright, not like ours when we're still children, but we just need to empower them. Yes, this is possible, you can do it. Meaning that when we empower them, they are going to speak out. They're going to be, because first and foremost, if someone is excited, the more you bring this information to them, it's a capturing area. Every time you bring something to them and it's moving, it's like they're really interested in it. it shows that they are welcoming it. So when it comes to children, children are really excited about it. It's just the adults that have a lot of issues. Someone is thinking about earning money and you're bringing the topic of climate change. That's a different topic. It's hard for them now to give you their time. But when you come to these children, they are eager to learn. They are so interested, and it has really worked out. Yeah.
Thank you, Irene. Anyone else has a different experience with children's reactions? Or do you also feel that they are very enthusiastic about it, and even more than adults are? Okay, otherwise we maybe leave it at that. Do we have another question from the audience? No, we don't at this moment. Yes, okay, please.
I was wondering, the regions where you active women are especially related by climate crisis. I was wondering whether there was the children also here, but they also have a fear concerning these events that are going to take place and that are already taking place, whether they are fearing for their future already. And I mean, you know, this too, like climate anxiety or something like that, whether there are these phenomena too, or whether they are just hopeful and enthusiastic to stay for this stage.
Thank you. I think I quickly repeat that for you, because as the name says, you are from the most affected areas. And if the children also feel this imminent threat, and the term climate anxiety was brought up, like if they are somehow scared of the climate crisis and what's about to happen, if you feel that there's something that they feel what the future might bring if they don't get active. Do you have anything to add on that?
Actually, one of the things I have realized is it's not easy to educate young people. We are still trying to show them what is supposed to be done, and not many have felt it. However much they see, but they haven't understood even where. You may ask, what kind of students are we reaching out to? Because that is also a different thing. Because talking about climate anxiety, I can feel it. I'm like, yeah, I think I should do something. But a kid who is 6 to 12 years, I think it is very hard for her to predict, or for him to predict her feeling. I'm like, yeah, it is this caused by climate anxiety or something. So to the number of kids we have reached out to, they haven't mastered what they are facing. Like even their feelings, they can't understand their feelings very well, but we are sure they will understand with time. To young people like our age mate, for them, they have felt it, and they are ready on front line. That's why we're like, we need to go back down, because we are leaving these people behind. At my age and my location, I can access internet, I have a computer, I can read everything, I can listen to news when something happens. But those people who are in remote or somewhere down in village, they are not aware of this. So we decided to go back to those ones who are still in lower classes. I wanted to show you something on how these people react whenever we go to those schools, how teachers react. I had a chance to record some video in my last event, and I would like to share it. I don't know if it will be perfect, but I just recorded this for future use. Yeah. Let me try to look for it. Can you see this? Hello?
Yes, we can see it.
You can see these kids?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So this was our last school, the one we visited. In the last 2 months, we have been in forest, visiting different forests, plant some trees. So this was...
Are you all ready to plant trees? Hi, everyone. set up primary school. This school is having more than 1,000 children. Managed to work with them to plant some trees. We brought over 245 trees. So in total, we did like 3 events: sensitization, tree planting, and how to strike.
My name is Namwanje Zulaika, and I'm a climate activist. Creating awareness in students is such a great activity that we activists can bring out what we really do, how to protect our environment through planting trees and giving out books that have all the necessary information about protecting the environment.
We had some challenges with the books. They are quite expensive. So even 100 textbooks, sometimes they are so little to school like this. However, I managed to distribute them with my team. This program goes on.
Trees help us in rain formation. Trees provide shadow for us. We get fruits from some trees. We get oxygen from trees.
Environment has been degraded simply because people don't know about the environment. But this one thing, young children, they are going to learn more, and I believe when they go home, they will protect the environment. Fossil fuel companies are threatening our oceans, killing our biodiversity, and also threatening the lives of indigenous communities where they are being carried out. Today, as young people, we have to wake up and do something. Social media has showed us that activism is possible. Our mission is to bring up every voice in a fight. And this mission starts now. Climate change is real and is happening now. The most affected communities have to rise up and take action. Thank you so much. We still need more support from you guys. I haven't hit my target. I'm not even a half of the target I want. But we keep trying. Climate action is starting now by you and me. Together we can make a difference. Thank you so much.
So that is what we did. And you are asking, how do kids react? Kids are always like passionate, like they are super excited whenever we visit schools, but it's just that sometimes the access is not easy, because even these teachers, the one you saw giving some interviews, are not the one controlling the school. Some of them have no say on who to enter or who to access the school. So sometimes the issue is on directors and some other people, but that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it was great to see some visual impressions and also see how the two of you collaborate, different activists coming together. If I understood correct, the video is on YouTube available, or maybe if someone wants to look it up.
Yeah, the video is on YouTube, is on 360 actually, 360.org. You'll find it. If you just search my name on Google, you will see all the video. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you guys very much. To wrap up this panel, I would like maybe a quick round of a look into the future, what your thoughts and hopes are, and maybe what you want to achieve with your activism if you set a specific goal. Maybe we could do a short round of all four of you. Yeah, what your thoughts and hopes about the futures are and how you look into it. Roseline, maybe you want to go ahead? Or if you don't hear me right now, someone else. Irene, you seem ready to go. Why don't you tell us what you look into the future looks like?
Sorry, it was trying to disturb me here. Okay, I've unmuted. The future, I see more young people stepping up and talking about a topic now they do understand. Because at first, I would say climate change was something that even I myself, I wasn't so aware about it. But each day when you're challenged by the questions people ask, when you see more young activists, especially from different countries, I'm always triggered to think outside the box. What can I do more? And when I realized that my country was still lagging behind when it comes to climate action, I feel I have to multiply my efforts. I need to look out for people to understand this better. So the future I envision, I see more young people, not even just the youth who are above 18, but then even the below 18, could be from 12 years to 17 years, are coming up to share their knowledge and what they think about climate change. So I envision that, and if we do more as activists who are already here and try to mentor these teenagers, I believe it will be great. And 2030 will be somewhere at least. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Zulaika, what's your look into the future?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Actually, my experience gives me a great look into the future, because whenever we visit different schools with Maurice, actually, we talk about climate education. We really see that students are really interested and they are to come up and join us so that we can really impact something great onto our environment and our country as a whole. So I predict that if more and more learners are able to access climate education, it will really bring about a big change. And I believe by 2030 we'll be somewhere, because the more we visit different schools, students are really excited to plant more and more trees. They're like, oh, why do we plant trees? They really want to know the importance of planting trees. So we keep on doing more and more planting, and it will help us in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Roseline, you seem to be back. Do you have some closing remarks on what you expect the future for you, activism?
Yeah, hello, thank you so much. I want to see a point where we have achieved resilience and ready communities. And I want to see a point where we have a lot of young people involved into climate activism. And because I want to see a ready community, like I said, so I want to see more voices coming up to protect our environment, because we have to achieve this together. And we have the young one coming up, so they should not face the same crisis that we are facing today. So if we have more voices on board, maybe from now to 2030, we will achieve some of our goals. So I want to see more voices. I want to see leaders taking action towards the climate crisis. I want to see a point where my government in Sierra Leone declare climate emergency, because we are in this crisis and we want safer environments for our upcoming generation, our generation yet unborn. So we want to see that we achieve green jobs in our communities. We want to see projects pertaining green jobs from now to 2030. So I want to see Sierra Leone to be like a green home and Africa at large. So we are asking our leaders to really pay attention to the climate crisis and bring out solutions on how to combat the crisis. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Finally, Morris, do you have some closing remarks or what you expect your activism to be in future?
Unless the limits on our political leadership, but if I had a chance, I would take political leadership. I will go into politics to take the lead, because we have seen that without we stepping ahead, these people will not do anything. So it is time for young people to take the lead. And the future, by the way, it's not tomorrow. The future is now. So we have to make sure we are in a position to challenge whatever comes on our way, because you can't tell me that my house is on fire, again, I wait for you to come. I have to first do something. If I fail, then I run away and I call you. So that is where I see my future. If all fails, I'll continue to challenge them. But it will require me to go into political leadership. I'll do it for my community. Thank you.
I think those were perfect closing remarks. Thanks so much to all of you for being here, for giving us your time, sharing your experiences. I am really impressed and inspired by what you do every day. Maybe we can wind up a round of applause for you. Yes, thank you so much. And I think we wrap it up